The topic for our term paper in PHI 143 is Feminism in the Indian Context. Next slide. So we start off by defining what feminism is about. So we can clearly see that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's more complicated as it involves different people and is something that is relevant to a diverse collection of people, right? And more importantly, feminism is about propagating equality, and it's not an anti-men propaganda.
In this paper, the context of feminism would be in the Indian context. Women within India, there's a lot of diversity among the regions, religion, as well as language and all of it. And they all share a different history, which is shared but yet very, very unique. But one thing is prevalent is sexism across India. So we would like to understand how this is affected and its relation to feminist movements as well as the political nature of this.
The authors acknowledge that the Indian government has provided women and other historically oppressed sections with opportunities and tried to cover up for them in the form of reservations and other related laws. Statistics show that these provisions have only but failed the objective of their being. The paper analyzes as to why and how these objectives fail to reduce these gender-based inequalities, and also considers the possibility of a history of reinforced institutional inequalities exercised by the government that enhance these discrepancies knowingly or unknowingly to it.
So here we look at the historical perspective where we go through some of the ill practices in practice earlier and how they were reformed throughout the history with the advent of feminism movements and awareness and education. So first we have sati practice in which a woman, and when her husband died, she had to perform sati in which she had to burn herself to death because mostly due to pressure of society and also due to that they were made to feel they are nothing without their husband. Next, we had dowry. So this is a exchange of goods, money, land, and property, where the bride's family gives the grooms all these as a dowry that he is accepting her daughter as their bride. And this is legally banned, but is still practiced all over India. Then we have triple talaq. So this was a particular religion's custom where a husband could divorce his or her wife by saying talaq 3 times. And this led to a lot of power in the hands of husband and he could easily get away with his wife. So this was unfair to women and this was put a legal ban on in 2017.
Even though there have been several laws that are meant to improve the lives of women, there hasn't been a strong feminist movement which is inclusive of all citizens. First of all, this has a lot of negative implications for us as a country and has a negative impact on all its citizens. For example, menstruation is a biological process is still considered a taboo. And for example, in a medical shop, they always wrap sanitary napkins in a black sheet as if it is something to be ashamed of, but it is perfectly natural. This mentality is reflected when there was initially a proposal to make a tax of 12% on sanitary napkins, which is a basic essential. This made sanitary hygiene accessible to a large section of women. However, after several years, was rolled back. There's a huge input of protests and movements on the rules we make for ourselves. But women aren't the only ones getting affected by this. Men too are affected. For example, men who get raped or assaulted are embarrassed to report in most cases as does not conform to the structure of upper masculinity where they need to hide their emotions and not show vulnerability. Additionally, there are many laws that are inherently skewed against women. And this is a situation where they're unable to find any legal recourse to any their problem. For example, marital rape is not a crime per se. Yes, if a man who rapes his wife who is younger than 15 years, it would be a crime. But the fact that he's marrying 15-year-old women is a crime by itself. So this is not really helping anyone as such. Also, there are several stereotypes about occupations and who is allowed to do it and who is not. For example, caring jobs like nurses or other hospitality jobs are supposedly for women, and men who do it are often shamed for it. Furthermore, women too who work in the apparently man's sphere are discouraged from working, and they're often not given equal opportunities.
As can be seen from the first graph, it can be deduced that the amount of participation of women in the Indian politics has increased over the years since independence, indicating that women are coming forward to take up positions of power in the government and are getting aware of the various provisions made for them by the government. However, it's worth noting that women are still not utilized the reservations and laws made for them in certain regions of the country, as the seats reserved for them in the Lok Sabha have still not been completely used.
Next, we look at a representation of the capita income and the revenue of the state regions versus the percentage of women in the labor force and contributing. So, as we might think, there's a direct correlation between the number of women working and the increase in revenue, but it is not so. This is largely due to even due to women are a major part of the almost 50% of the population of India, and yet they are not a significant part of the workforce.
Next, we look at the challenges. So, the causes for female underrepresentation in politics in India is firstly, it's mainly because of the lack of awareness about possible opportunities. So most women are not even aware about what opportunities they have and what reservations they have in the political scenario in India. So, and there's also a lack of independence to think. Most women are not even allowed to go out of their homes or make a choice for their own. There's also a social stigma around gender roles, and people are not used to seeing women in politics, and it's not seen as a thing that is common or that should be common. So next we look at the benefits of female representation in politics. So having women in politics is definitely something that is necessary for a country like India, which has a lot of women. So there's a better chance of needs being represented by women. They're given more attention and for being taken care by the government, and it's also more likely to make women are more likely to make policies that are beneficial for children's well-being.
Next, we look at a more inclusive form of feminism. Our earlier definition only incorporates that equality between all and the rights for women, which they are not given and they are oppressed. But then there are many marginal communities, and including LGBTQ+, which face these oppressions and unjust practices and due to orthodox thinking. So now we're moving towards incorporating everyone and equality for everyone.
Further, we talk about institutionalized inequalities. So, this is the way that institutions incorporate historical social practices that presumed women would be marginal workers and would occupy subordinate roles in both workplace and family. Today, we know that this is not the right way to go about things, but which is why so many changes have taken place. But we see that gender inequality persists in our society, mostly because mostly by the means of exclusionary power on the basis of gender, right? So here we propose a few solutions to curb this. So we must try to ensure that changes suggested in an organization actually does impact women's life positively. Policies can be proposed, but it's in the implementation where such policies tend to get shaky. So to ensure proper implementation, one must not forget to pay close attention to the real cause of women's disempowerment in that institution. And only when we realize the depth of an issue would we be able to figure out whether the involved women will benefit or not. and gender equality policies that urge organizations to work in a particular field, in a particular area of improvement would be encouraged. For example, stable functioning bodies that are funded by the government that help women become more sound in specific fields, like in the field of technology, let's say, rather than large scale bodies that contribute in a more vague manner, right? And organizations must take in a higher percentage of women in the workforce. This way, women's voices are heard, and their collective presence in the workforce would help empower them to become to bring about what their needs to the front, and also to bring about the changes that they do deserve.
Intersectional feminism was a term coined by the American law professor Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989 as a name given to the theory that explored the oppression of women of color within the American society. Today, the analysis has expanded to include many more aspects of social identity.
So we propose intersectional feminism as a solution to the problem of feminism in India. So now we're discussing the aims or the ideals of the concept of intersection feminism. So it aims at firstly validating the existence of overlapping and intersecting inequalities. So people are facing inequalities in different ways. For example, gender or race. We look at all the overlapping cases and we validate or acknowledge these cases. It also aims at fighting against all forms of oppression while simultaneously considering the social history of the oppressor and the oppressed. So unlike other theories, it also incorporates the perspective of the oppressor. It mainly envisions a new world with a new normal that is fair for all. So now this theory is far from the real world problem, but we try to find scalable solutions. So the ideal is that nobody is free before everybody is free.
So, intersectional feminism focuses on the oppressed fighting for their basic human rights by themselves, with little to no reliance on the allies. Implicating this on the Indian model, we can say that the only way women can actually liberate themselves economically and socially is through their participation in the decision making of the government and reforming the laws, rules, and provision made for them in their better favor. Simultaneously, and in an ideal case, they also need to be educated about the various forms of oppressions faced by the other minorities in the country and uplift them all along with women. For this, uh, for for this to be actually realized, the current government needs to focus more money and focus more on the education of the women in the country, so that they know more about their rights and the various provisions that have been made for them.
This picture represents intersectional feminism at its best. There needs to be a representation of all the identities we hold in the political sphere. And in a diverse country like India, this might be hard. But as said before, nobody is free until everybody is free. So working together and removing oppression of all forms is the only way we can all progress together.